Hello, welcome to Nyambung, a program to get you clicked and connect.
Yeah, and I want to ask about the UN. Actually, the UN has has produced two resolution. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, it is the partition plan in the resolution number 181 and the one that is 194, that is as a reaction of Israel is being like this inhumane towards Palestine. But why does the UN seem so powerless towards this, Budina?
Well, it has something to do with the design of multilateralism under the UN. That's one of the story that we all have to remember. After the Second World War, basically, um, what countries learn not to repeat is to talk behind everybody else's back. So having diplomacy, but highly or solely on bilateral mechanism, can be quite risky for other countries because you can never know what they've been agreeing about, what they plan to do, and sometimes what they plan to do may also be, you know, different from what they express to other countries. So they speak behind someone's back. With the and we the world learns about the difficulty of establishing multilateral mechanism as well, because the question is who is going to sustain it, how the mechanism will be to make the institution works, both at the power level as well as at the technical level, such as financing, staffing, and stuff like that. But the Second World War brought us to the reality that basically all countries realized that the disaster of humanity has been so unbearable after the Second World War, and not to the extent of destruction was also unbearable. Very hard to rebuild some countries, especially the European countries, right? They cannot even rebuild themselves, so they need money from the US. So at that time, the agreement was to design the UN where everybody can have a voice, but only at the General Assembly forum. And the format there will be a debate. And a debate here means that at the leadership level, they can talk about what they want to raise, internationally. Everybody will be given the same chunk of time to speak. And during the debate, sometimes because it's head of state, they can basically talk as long as they want. And that's to capture the sense of how everybody feels about the state of the world. But the one who can make a decision on action, so General Assembly is basically noting concerns and developing norms, making norms that would respond to those concerns. But the one who can make action, who can take action, is the Security Council. Security Council is the one with the mandate to follow up on any plans that some member state may initiate to do through resolution. And they can go inside of other countries, they can deploy peacekeeping force, they can deploy humanitarian assistance and things like that, and also scold some countries if they wish, if the Security Council speak. But the design of the Security Council is really hinges on the winner of the Second World War, the 5 Ps, call it the 5 countries. So this 5 countries with the veto power is basically where the decisions of the Security Council would land. The non-permanent members may change every few years. There will be opportunity for non-permanent members to participate, but they again the point is just to deliberate, talk and initiate ideas, but the last decision will be at the permanent five members, whether they will agree or disagree. Now, as you can imagine, Israel-Palestine has been involving the P5 for many, many years. Not just the US, actually. If you look at the history, back in the days during the Cold War, Soviet Union was also involved. And Britain was the one who draw the lines in most
Britain
parts
is the one that have the initiation.
Yeah, that's Britain is the brain behind some of these ideas, right? The US is the executor maybe, and the funder and a pusher. So France is also. Don't forget how France is also has been involved also in the conflict in the Middle East, because France is also part of the ally power from Britain. So it's to take action or not against Israel is not just a decision of one country. Inside of Middle East, it's very hard to rally support from the Arab countries, from outside of from inside of the UN. It's very hard to rally total vote from the permanent members of UN Security Council. So I think that's the reality. It's not necessarily about just Israel and then some one or two countries. It's a lot of factors get in the way and make Israel stronger.
Yeah, actually, of course. My God. And if we cannot actually we cannot rely 100% on the UN, how about the OIC, Budina, the Organization of Islamic Countries? Organization of Islamic Cooperation, that is consisted of 56 countries, like Islamic countries in the world. Do you think that the OIC members will actually gather and defend Palestine as we are with Palestine, like that, Budina?
So there are several layers in how we can at least at this point, the strategy from countries like Indonesia is resistance, and voicing solidarity in terms of violation of norms for freedom of Palestinians. So it's in the one level, what Indonesia has been doing is useful, because if no other countries will speak up to voice concerns about what Israel has been up to, and the absence of relative pressure to Israel, then nobody would. Imagine if Indonesia has not been active and trying to schedule a special meeting in the General Assembly and not sending all those letters so that the members of OIC would come and join Indonesia in the General Assembly. You can imagine the world will be very silent. Maybe we just hear complaints of what Israel has been doing through the media, but that's it. At the state level, there won't be anything. On the other hand, however, we shall not rely solely on that kind of pressure. The level of complexity of the conflict is so deep and broad and difficult that making statements will only develop or offer temporary solution, will only generate temporary pressure as well for Israel, basically, to do the ceasefire. Maybe without the pressure from the UN, Israel will not stop raiding, Gaza. But the thing is, back again to the neighboring countries. I have a picture that I developed. We can share it also if possible. Basically, the center of conflicts in the Middle East is between the Arabs versus the Jews, and then there's the Persian. So these are the three main players inside of the region. So will when Trump, for instance, and we can interpret how these countries relate to one another over time period to understand why other countries in the region is not as responsive as Indonesia.
Yeah.
OIC countries is only gathered and organized after the Arab League falls apart.
Yeah.
Arab League was designed to make sure that there's very strong influence from the Arab countries in the Middle East, which since the Cold War, it started to fell apart. Oh, not Cold War, but the Six-Day War in 1967. Basically, Arab League, when they lose from Israel, they fell apart. This solidarity among them fell apart. For economic issues, they go on their own way, and then later on for political issues, they also go through their own way. So they don't work through Arab League, but countries like Indonesia are forcing. We have to build solidarity among the Muslim countries. So the OIC we see. So OIC is a pressure to. OIC is one pressure to ensure that solidarity among Muslim countries continues. It's a very norm-based. But again, at the end of the day, do member states work through OIC for their economic interests? No. Do they use OIC for advancing their political interests in the region? No. And the most updated example of that is the signing of the Abraham Accords, where Donald Trump from the U.S. initiated peace agreement between United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Israel, and it has expanded to Sudan and Morocco as well. And because of that, Egypt has been tamed as well. So, countries that, some of these countries, especially if we talk about COVID, COVID situation. If you look at UAE, for instance, United Emirates Arab, this is a small country that's been really based on oil for its development, for its economy. And what you see there is that the COVID pandemic pressure them even more because they cannot sell more oil. Same thing with like Bahrain and Saudi Arabia also affected as well. So they must diversify faster than ever. This realization has been felt before, actually, that they need to diversify their economy. But one, still try to do different things by building infrastructures and tourism sites, to attract people coming from the region. So, in developing their service economy to complement the fossil-based economy. But the COVID makes it difficult. You cannot do tourism, and what you can expect now is that at least you build good relationship to develop the surface site. And the leader in that regard, one of them is Israel in the world. So Israel is number one in technology for food, technology of IT, technology for tourism, and many Israelis are wealthy. So if you cannot travel or attract travelers from around the world, the least you can do is at least attract the Israelis to come visit some of these countries. So normalization, it's not necessarily, Abraham Accords is not creating peace per se. I don't quite believe it's peace as we imagine, full long-term time of no tensions, no conflicts, but it's more of a normalization that at the diplomatic level would allow them to engage Israel and attract investments and eliminate the negative image that some countries have, and in return the U.S. will give them aid.
Yeah.
So it's the situation is like that, take and give.
Yeah, and what's really interesting for me, at least, Budina, we so I see that Israel is using like political and economic strategy to strengthen their position in the region, and what is actually and Palestinian and all of the countries that is supporting Palestine is using human rights narrative to strengthen their position. Do you think it's equal? Do you think it's it's working for the Palestine?
As I said earlier, global politics cannot be reduced to solely the issue of economics or security or defense issue, because global politics is also about human beings, about the people who populate the world. So it's essential for global politics to always also consider standards of what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, treatment and behavior towards other human beings and towards other nations. So that kind of standards needs to be there no matter what. It needs to be voiced loud and clear. So everybody remember all the that hostilities would lead to chains of hostilities and violence, rather than solving any kinds of concerns that any country would try to solve. But we have to remember as well that in order for standards of human rights, also standards of solidarity among religion or solidarity among groups, what you need to do is what you need to realize, is that they need practical things that also bring benefits for their people. So you cannot just preach norms without considering that on day-to-day living, people needs options. If we don't provide options for these people who believe in justice, who believe in rights, then what do we offer as an alternative? So the good question of that you just posed is that Israel has been expanding its economic presence much more than Palestine. Of course, one can say, it's very difficult for an occupied country like Palestine to be like Israel. Okay, but the countries who used to fight for Palestine, if they are truly believing in the principle of solidarity with Palestine, they should be helpful to Palestine, making sure that Palestinian people is accepted maybe in other countries, so they can get jobs outside of Israel. They will be welcomed by other Arab countries. They got development of what do you call it, human capital by schooling and things that would help them accelerate the economic growth, for instance. But what all you see throughout the years is the pattern of giving help to Palestine just for humanitarian issue, and just when you witness violence happening to Palestine. So it's a very sporadic and very, what do you call it? Yeah, nothing systematic. And it's been the countries that's been very that's known to have solidarity for Palestine are not industrialized countries. You realize that they are not the countries with the top technology development, not having the best in economy. Whereas Israel, it's even before it is recognized by many countries in Southeast Asia, for instance, it aggressively offer products to the region. So of the ASEAN member states, for instance, of the 10 member states, only 3 countries doesn't have diplomatic relations with Israel. The rest have diplomatic relations. Those with no diplomatic relations is just Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei. But behind of not signing diplomatic relations. Yeah.
Budina, it was like raised yesterday that the news broke that Indonesia actually bought military tools from Israel. Is it true?
I think we can pose that question to the Ministry of Defense.
Okay, Ministry of Defense, if you're listening to this podcast, please respond.
They're the one with the best knowledge to respond, because when it comes to weapons and security tools like that, not the broad public knows exactly where they get them. So, but true. Diplomatic relations doesn't necessarily stop one country to buy products from the countries, and not necessarily stopping as well the flow of products coming in from the third countries.
Okay.
Because some countries in the region serve as a hub, as an entry point. So we may know it as a product of that third country, where actually it's just putting label on it. The product itself comes from Israel. So as I said, it's a very savvy country in technology, Israel. So many developed countries have worked with them, which explains, right, why they have strong financial power to support all its actions, whereas Palestine don't. So where have we been in terms of realistically, operationally supporting Palestine? And the same question around as well, actually. How can the Palestinian Authority explain how they develop their how they develop all the help that has been invested to them? It's been decades. They should be able to hold themselves accountable for why they haven't been operating as we expect. After all, the country responsible for their fate is that country. You are responsible to organize other countries, to make other countries realize and put it in the high priority of other countries' agenda. It's the state. I mean, it's the responsibility of Palestinians as well, right? On the one hand.